Oh, hello again. This is called Poems Not Pills, and I say this every time. I was appalled to read that the National Health Service prescribes 80 million prescriptions a year for depression. And it seems to me that poems might, in a small way, help people who are depressed. Now, we're going to start. Oh, no, I need to say one other thing, and that is I cannot control the ads. I'm very sorry if Google or YouTube decide to put ads in the middle. I have absolutely control over them, so I apologise for that in advance. Right. Now, let's start with something jolly, light-hearted, Dylan Thomas. In later life, Dylan Thomas, I'm afraid, was a bit of a drunk. And it is possible that in this early poem, he shows the signs, because this is a bit, as we might say, all over the place. Right, here we go. This is an extract from something much longer. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above, dingle, starry, let me hail and climb, golden in the heyday of his eyes. And honoured among wagons, I was prince of apple towns. Once upon a time, once below a time, I lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall night. As I was green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young only once, let me play and be golden in the merry of his means. And green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, the calves sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of holy streams. There's lots more of that, if not from me, but in books and probably on the internet. Now, something much more sober. This is Larkin, and it's about some statues which actually exist in a place called Arundel in England. Side by side, their faces blurred, the Earl and Countess lie in stone, their proper habits vaguely shown as jointed armour, stiffened pleat, and that faint hint of the absurd, the little dogs under their feet. Such plainness in the pre-Baroque hardly involves the eye until it meets his left hand gauntlet, still clasped empty in the other, and one sees with a sharp and tender shock his hand withdrawn, holding her hand. They would not think to lie so long, such faithfulness in effigy was just a detail friends would see, a sculpture's sweet commissioned grace, thrown off in helping to prolong the Latin names along the base. Time has transfigured them into untruth. The stone fidelity they hardly meant has come to be their final blazon, and to prove our almost instinct, almost true, that what will survive of us is love. A blazon, by the way, is a coat of arms thing that people wore. Now that's Larkin in really quite an unusual mode, because many of his poems are a bit cynical and cold, but that's showing that he did have an inner warm self. Now, getting away from being solemn, this is something silly, and it is light relief. It's by Jenny Joseph. When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple, with a red hat, which doesn't go, and doesn't suit me. I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves, and satin sandals, and say we have no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired, and gobble up samples in shops, and press alarm bells, and run my stick along the public railings, and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain, and pick flowers in other people's gardens, and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, and only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry, and pay our rent, and not swear in the street, and set a good example for the children. Must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me will not be too shocked or surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple. Now, that's Jenny Josephs, who was a serious poet, but that clearly is a fun poem. Now, this is much more thoughtful, and critics have wondered quite what it's about, but it's nominally about birch trees. Robert Frost, the poet, was a farmer. He lived in the northeast of America, and he grew apples and other things, but this is about birch trees. When I see birches bend to left and right across the line of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy has been swinging them. But swinging down doesn't bend them down to stay, like ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice on a sunny winter morning after rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-coloured, and the stir cracks and crazes their enamel. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. Such heaps of broken glass to sweep away, you'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They're dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed. For so long, they never right themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods, yet years afterwards trailing their leaves on the ground, like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them to dry in the sun. That's an old-fashioned image, isn't it? Girls drying their hair, not with air blowers, but in the sun. Okay. But I was going to say, when truth broke in, with all her matter-of-fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out and in fetch of the cows. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself, summer and winter, and could play alone. One by one he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them. And not one but hung limp, not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about swinging, about not launching out too soon, and not caring too much of the tree away, clear to the ground. He always kept his poise to the top branches, climbing carefully, with the same pains as you used to fill a cup, up to the brim, and even over the brim. Then he flung outwards, feet first, with a swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. So was I once myself a swinger of birches. And so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations and life is too much like a pathless wood where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig's having lashed across your eye. I'd like to get away from earth a while and then come back to it and begin over. May no fate wilfully misunderstand me and half grant what I wish and snatch me away, not to return. Earth's the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better. I'd like to go by climbing a birch tree and climb black branches up a snow-white trunk toward heaven till the tree can bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. It would be good, both going and coming back. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. Now clearly that's about an old man remembering the excitements of his youth and indeed the disappointments of his youth. And it's a lovely image of trying things, doing one's best, flying for a while and then bumping down again. But Frost, he was at one time the American Poet Laureate, which is, the most senior poet in the land. Good bloke. Now, more Larkin, okay? Lambs that learn to walk in snow when bleating clouds of air meet a vast unwelcome. They know nothing but a sunless glare. Newly stumbling to and fro, all they find outside the fold is a wretched width of cold. As they wait beside the ewe, her fleeces wetly caked, their lies hidden around them, waiting too, earth's immeasurable surprise. Could they grasp if they knew what would soon will wake and grow utterly unlike the snow. So that's Larkin saying, again, I'm guessing here, but there's Larkin saying, that we all huddle up sometimes when it's all cold, we don't want to go anywhere, but if only we knew it, life will burst in upon us and spring is coming. It's a nice idea. Have you ever seen lambs in the snow? They're all caked with snow, poor things, but they are warm. Now, more about wonder. This is Spellbound by Emily Bronte. The night is darkening round me. The wild winds coldly blow. But a tyrant's spell has bound me, and I cannot go. The giant trees are bending, their bare boughs wade with snow, and the storm is fast descending, and yet I cannot go. Clouds beyond clouds above me, wastes beyond wastes below, but nothing drear can move me. I will not, cannot go. And this is cynical. This is deliberately cynical by a lady called Dorothy Parker, who was a great wit in New York, a sort of cafe wit. A single flower, he said, since we met, all tenderly his message he chose, deep-hearted, pure, with scented dew still wet, one perfect rose. I knew the language of the floweret. My fragile leaves, it said, his heart enclose. Love has long taken for his amulet one perfect rose. Why has no one ever sent me yet one perfect limousine, do you suppose? Oh no, it's always just my luck to get one perfect rose. So there she was, a wit, a poet, but a cynic. Now we're back to Robert Frost, and we're back to snow. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake, as if there is some mistake. The only other sound is the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So again, I think that's Frost being older, being aware that he's a bit lost. It's a lovely poem, lovely time. Now we're going to read. Anybody who's watched any of this before will realise that I talk a little bit, by request, about my own early life, which was a bit bonkers. Okay, so I was sent from our bombed house in London, 1941, to live on a farm, and I have written about my experiences on the farm. And this is another episode. My memories of the farm are still vivid, lots of jobs imprinted into my body memory, not just my brain. Images are strong, but time-muddled. The routine. Farm life starts early. Without clocks, we became sensitive to light through the window. The cockerel and crows were up even before us. My bed companions, apart from a battered teddy bear, were two working dogs, Keg and Whistle. My quick wash was cold water in a thick china bowl, poured from a jug. I needed both hands with bowl on the floor, not on the pine washstand, because I was very small. Breakfast was porridge oats, water and dried apple. The flagstone kitchen had a huge iron range, rough oats and well water brewed slowly overnight. The porridge was cooked overnight. There was no white imported sugar because there was a war. What we had were dried apple rings and some sugar beet grows in East Anglia still, and some sugar beet slurp. We grew the sugar beet ourselves. Some for us, for the various beasts, and some to give to our neighbours. In jobs later, I shall describe making apple rings and beet sugar. Because as a lad, as I say, I had help doing all these jobs. There was no question of watching telly or having a phone, nothing. You just had to work like everybody else. Okay. There were eggs, which I had gathered from the hens, but rarely for breakfast. They were mostly hard-boiled for dinner. That's 12 noon dinner, and after ploughing. Tea was very scarce, because tea doesn't grow in England. It was imported, but essential. Like the oats, it was stewed on the iron range top slowly. The brew was jugged into a flip top. And we had old Tizer. Tizer was a drink before Coca-Cola. And we had Tizer bottles with flip tops. So the tea was put into the, and usually drunk cold. And the ploughman used to take them out into the fields with them with a lump of cheese and drink this cold tea. It was an English tradition. We baked our own bread. Even when very young, most of my day was jobs. I didn't go to school, jobs. And the jobs I will describe later, my jobs I'll describe later. But the only education I had as such was from a battered version of something called Arthur Mee's Children's Encyclopedia, which I read over and over and over again. So that's it for this time, folks. More poems next time, and a little bit more about my life. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.